Hi, welcome to episode 31, Voicing Those Roman Numerals, part 1. So, I want to take the two songs we were working with last time and take a closer look at how these chords are being played in those songs. Just a quick review. So, Earth Angel is the first song we talked about last time. Sounds like this. And it has an A flat chord, F minor chord, a D flat chord, an E chord, E flat chord. The roots are in blue. The roots are the notes the chords are named after. A flat, F, D flat, E flat. The thirds are in green. C, A flat, F, G. The fifths are in pink. E flat, C, A flat, B flat. But if you listen to the piano in this recording, back at the beginning, that's not really how he's playing it. So he's playing these chords, but the thing about chords is there's more than one way to what we call voice a chord. We use the word voice no matter whether we're actually talking about singing or any other instrument. Voicing kind of means like how we distribute the root, the third, and the fifth of the chord on the actual instrument as it's actually getting played. And it's actually pretty rare to voice lead this chunkily. See how it's like the same shape of every chord? And it gives you this kind of chunky sound. It sounds something like this. Forgive my Casio tones here, but something like this. Doesn't sound bad, but it's really chunky. And it also does something in classical music we really don't like, where you hear this in there. Now, this isn't classical music, so we don't care as much. But a lot of times that chunky quality can be explained by the fact that the distance between the root and the fifth of the chord, that fifth interval, kind of sticks out. And then that fifth goes down to the F and C fifth, goes down to the A flat and D flat fifth, to the E flat and B flat one, and we don't like it in classical music. And a lot of times we don't like it in pop music. It all depends on what you're going for. Lots of pop music, like punk rock music, is almost all parallel fifths. And we like that because it's like an elemental kind of thing. It's like stripping things down to its basics. A lot of pop music, we like smoother voice leading than that. And this Penguins thing is no exception. Let's look at how he actually plays it, or she. I don't know who played this piano in the studio, but let's write down a pretty faithful transcription of what they played. And the record is at a weird speed, so if you have perfect pitch and you're watching this, it might be driving you crazy. The actual note is somewhere in between A flat and A, and it's hard to tell which key it was actually in when they recorded it. Probably the tape got a little off speed. But let's listen and try and like transcribe it. To transcribe some music means to write it down based on what you heard. Okay, and I'm not going to worry too much about the rhythm, but I want to kind of get some aspects of it. So I hear that A flat way down here in the bass. The bass line. Right? And so I'm not going to write it rhythmically super accurately, but let's get the notes down there. It goes in A, and then before the F, it has this, what we call a passing note. I'll write it as a filled in note head. And then there's another passing note down to the D flat, and then another note passing up to the E flat. Oh wait, that would be D natural right there, going up to the E flat. We don't have to really talk about these. I just didn't want to miss a chance to talk about something. We'll often label with a P in the world of music theory, P stands for passing. So what we're saying is those notes aren't super important. They're there to connect the important notes. And with a little caveat that by important, I mean structurally part of the harmony. Obviously, all the little things that you could say are unimportant are part of all that we love about music. So there's no value judgment here. It's just that the chords are represented by these 4 notes. And these things are passing between them. It doesn't really mean they're like less important to the music. It just means they're not structurally part of the chords. Now, if we listen to the rest of the voices, a lot of times we talk about the bass, and then in keyboard style music, there's usually 3 or so upper voices, and we usually write them in the upper staff when we're talking about keyboard writing. So he voiced this chord like this. Really, it's an octave lower than this, but actually I'll write it as it exactly is. He voiced that chord like this. I'll keep my color scheme going. So it was kind of just like how we talked about it, but an octave lower, right? We had our A flat chord up here, starting on A flat 4. He's starting his A flat chord on A flat 3. And he's playing that. But then if you listen, he actually ends up not changing the note. So when he gets to his F chord, he keeps this A. He keeps that A there, but only now that A is the 3rd of your F chord. Sorry, A flat. And he keeps that C, but now that C is the 5th of your F chord. But then weirdly, and this goes beyond what we've talked about, he also keeps the E. That actually turns this into a different kind of chord. Oh, whoops. These all are supposed to go with this chord, sorry. And these go with this chord. He keeps the exact same voicing in his right hand, but he changes the bass note. And what that actually does is turns this into a 7th chord. So instead of being A flat to F minor, it's F minor 7. And we haven't really talked about 7th chords, and we're not really going to. But for now, I'm just going to let you know that that's what it is. Then if we continue on listening, so that next chord, he comes up here and hits a D flat like that, an F like that, and an A flat up here. So he actually ends up doing, why do I keep not writing these where they go? I mean to write these right over this, but I'm not going to restart the video. This one he actually wrote it exactly like how we did. And the next one he's going to write exactly how we did too, except you might have noticed he doesn't play them all at the same time. What they do instead is they do something we call arpeggiation. Let me write that word down. Arpeggiation means taking a chord and playing it one note at a time instead of all at the same time. Oh, I wrote the wrong notes there. There should be an E flat, a G, and a B flat. So, not the least chunky voice leading, pretty chunky. He's got... And do you hear especially the move from this F minor chord to the D flat chord? Really chunky. Every single voice moves up pretty far. Let's see, A, B, C, D. Moves up a 4th. It's kind of weird. But it still works. It still works. Let's talk about True Blue now. True Blue takes a lot smoother approach to voice leading, and let's listen to the actual voicings in True Blue. I had the wrong key signature for it up here. I hope someone watching these videos was like, why did he write the key signature for F sharp when he was in B? I'm not going to pretend that was on purpose. Okay. In True Blue, there's some much smoother voice leading, and that will help us understand where I'm coming from here. So it's once the verses start, and I'll write down the bass line here as it plays. So the B, dun, 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 G sharp, dun, 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 dun. And that sounds like it might go up to this E, but my ear can't really tell. Maybe it's this E, maybe it's this F sharp. I'm not really sure. Do, 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 do. Hey, True Blue is out of tune too. Or maybe it's this Casio SK1 I'm using. I don't know. Let's listen to those upper voices though. That's where the voice leading really happens. So, lesson 0 of voice leading. The bass gets to do whatever it wants. The bass doesn't care if it leaps and is chunky. The things we learn about upper voices do not apply to the bass. The bass always gets to obey its own harmonic and melodic rules. And that's the whole thing about the bass. It gets to decide moment to moment if it's acting like a melody. Like this bass is pretty melodic, right? It has these passing notes. Or if it's really just doing its like heavy lifting of holding up the chord. And so bass lines can easily jump into being chunky, and it doesn't make everything else sound chunky. Let's listen to this nice smooth voice leading though. So I don't know if you can hear it super well in there, but that B chord is, the B chord is voiced like this. It's got its root down here, it's got its third here, and it's got its fifth here. So pretty much just like how we wrote it before, but an octave down. And then when you get to that G sharp chord, you might have to listen on your own to be able to hear this, but it's actually voiced like this. So here's the B chord, and then here's the G sharp minor chord. Hear how it just smoothly transitioned, and I'll show you why. When we played that G sharp minor chord, the keyboard player or sequencer or whatever here kept the B and the D sharp, because those also show up in a G sharp minor chord, right? They have different roles though. Now the B is the third, and the D sharp is the fifth of the chord. And then this F sharp went up to G sharp and became the root of the chord. So by putting the root up here above the third and the fifth in the right hand, we get this way smoother voice leading. Right? Pretty cool. And then let's hear what happens next. So I heard that top note continue. And in fact, I heard the bottom note continue too. And it was only the middle note that changed there. So the bottom note stayed a B, and indeed there's a B and an E chord. It's the fifth of the E chord. So now the bottom note is the fifth, and then that top note stuck around, and it's a G sharp, and that's the third of your E chord. And this root went up in an inner voice there. Sorry, there we go. And then the last chord, running out of time, so I'm just going to write it here. The F sharp moved up. The G sharp went to an A sharp, and that's the third of this chord. And the C sharp is the fifth. So this last chord move, everything just moved as a chunk, but only up a step, right? So it's way less chunky voice leading. Listen to it all together. Right? And now just for comparison, I'll play the Blue Moon voice leading, but I'll keep it in the same key. Hear how the difference there? So smooth. That's what we like in classical music. Doesn't always matter in pop music, But this is a good intro to how voice leading can change how it sounds. Goodbye.